Hello and welcome to the Eclectic Kitchen. Today we're making pan bread, a soft and tasty bread you can make on your stovetop, no oven required. Let's get started. To a bowl, add 250 grams of all-purpose flour, 50 grams of whole wheat flour, 6 grams of salt, 6 grams of sugar, and 4 grams of yeast. Give it a quick mix to distribute the ingredients evenly. Next, add 150 ml of water, 80 ml of milk, and 20 ml of olive oil. I'm also adding in about half a tablespoon of fresh chopped rosemary. It's optional but adds a nice flavor. Mix everything together with a wooden spoon until it's all combined and you don't see any more dry flour. Cover the bowl and let sit for about an hour. It doesn't have to double in size, but you should see a noticeable rise. Once it's ready, take the dough and start stretching it. Lift, rotate and slap it onto your work surface about 8 to 12 times. This helps develop the gluten, and by the last slap you should see the top of the dough start to smooth out. It will still be sticky, so a bench scraper comes in really handy here. Cover it back up and let rise for another hour. After the second rise, place the dough on a floured surface. Pull the edges toward the center, then flip it over so the seam side is down. Use your palms to rotate and tighten into a nice smooth ball. Brush your pan with about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Transfer the dough into the pan, lightly oil the top and press it out gently with your fingers to even out. It doesn't have to get to the edges of the pan. Cover and let rest for 30 minutes. Now let's bake. Turn your stove to the lowest heat setting, place the pan on the burner and cook covered for about 20 minutes. I've never had it burn, but I wouldn't recommend leaving it completely unattended. Check in every few minutes, just in case. After 20 minutes, gently remove the lid and flip the bread. You can use a plate to help flip it over, but I like to live dangerously. I just flip the whole pan over the bread. Cover it again and cook for another 10 minutes. Flip it one more time, check the edges and give the center a tap. If it sounds hollow, you're good. Mine needed about 5 more minutes to finish up. Once it's done, turn off the heat, keep the pan covered and let it steam for another 10 minutes. Remove from the pan and let it cool. And that's it, your bread is done. Soft, chewy and perfect with sauces, soups or just a drizzle of olive oil. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more simple, delicious recipes. Until then, enjoy and have a great day. Hello and welcome to the Eclectic Kitchen. Today I'll be showing you how to make simple flour tortillas. Soft, flexible and incredibly flavorful, these are perfect for all your favorite fillings. I make these whenever I need tortillas, whether it's for lunch or a meal prep. They freeze well and can even be made a day in advance. For this recipe, you're going to need 500 grams of all-purpose flour, 90 grams of lard, 6 grams of salt and baking powder, and around a cup of hot water. To a large bowl, add the flour, salt and baking powder and give it a quick mix to evenly distribute the dry ingredients. Add the lard and using your fingers, start crumbling it into the flour mixture. You're aiming for a texture like damp sand. No large chunks of lard should remain. Next, pour in about 220 ml of hot water. If you're using boiling water, mix it with a wooden spoon. Very hot water tends to produce slightly softer tortillas, but warm tap water works perfectly well too. After a short mix, it should be cool enough to continue mixing by hand. Knead just until a dough forms and there's no dry flour left in the bowl. My dough looked a little dry at this stage, so I kneaded in about 2 tablespoons of water. Transfer the dough to a clean work surface and knead until it forms a nice smooth ball. This should take about 3 to 5 minutes depending on how much mixing you did in the bowl. It's a short knead, but if your hand tires, you can just cover the dough and continue a bit later. Once the dough is smooth, place it back into the bowl and cover it tightly with plastic wrap to prevent the surface from drying out, and let it rest for about an hour. Once the dough has rested, it should be smooth and supple. Now, you could eyeball the dough pieces, but for evenly sized tortillas I really recommend using a scale. I aimed for about 70 grams per piece, which gave me 12 tortillas plus a little extra dough. Next, shape each dough piece into a ball. You can do this by rolling it between your hands or by pulling the edges toward the center and then rolling it seam side down on the counter until it's tight and round. You can place the dough balls on parchment paper or a tray, but I usually just pop them back into the bowl. They only really stick on very hot days when I don't roll them out quickly enough. To roll the tortillas, flatten a dough ball on a floured surface and roll it out, turning the dough 90 degrees after each roll. They don't have to be perfectly round, some imperfections give them a homey look, but I'll leave tips for rounder tortillas in the description. I like to keep some a bit thicker like this one for a chewier bite, but if you're making wraps, roll them out until they're thin enough to be almost see-through. You should just be able to make out the table underneath. Cook the tortillas on a preheated pan over medium-high to high heat. Cooking time will vary depending on your pan and stove, but you'll know it's time to flip when they get nice and bubbly. Flip and cook for another 10 to 15 seconds, then transfer to a kitchen towel to keep them warm and soft. And don't forget to bake any leftover scrap dough, that's a little snack for the chef. I'll be filling these with some delicious roasted chicken, veggies and a jalapeno yogurt sauce. I might have overfilled them a bit, but you know, overfilled tortillas are a good problem to have. Not leaking or breaking, those are the signs of a perfect tortilla. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and consider subscribing for more delicious recipes. Until next time, bon appetit! Hello and welcome to the Eclectic Kitchen. Today I will show you a recipe for naan, soft flatbreads that are baked on a pan and go perfectly with curries, dal, thick soups and stews. This recipe is easy to make and will take you about 2 hours from start to finish, most of which is waiting for the dough to rise. Let's begin by blooming the yeast. To a mixing bowl, add 250 ml of lukewarm water, 60 ml of milk, 20 grams of sugar, 7 grams of dry yeast and 1 egg. Mix everything well until you get a homogeneous mixture. Cover and leave for 10 to 15 minutes until it gets slightly foamy. Mix 540 grams of flour and 6 grams of salt in a large bowl. I'm using a mix of all-purpose and bread flour, but you can just use one or the other. Pour the prepared yeast mixture and 60 grams of melted butter or olive oil into the flour. Mix with a wooden spoon until you get a thick mixture, then continue kneading with wet hands until the dough comes together. The dough should be slightly sticky, but it shouldn't stick too much to your hands or the work surface. Cover the dough and let it rise until it doubles in volume, about 1 to 1.5 hours. When the dough has risen, take it out of the bowl, shape into a log to make it easier to cut, and divide it into 12 equal pieces. You can eyeball it, but I like to use a scale. Flatten each piece, pull the edges toward the middle and roll between your palms and the table until you get smooth dough balls.
Place the balls on a lightly floured baking sheet and leave them covered with a cloth to rise for another 15 minutes. Shape the naan by flattening the ball with your fingers, then roll it with a rolling pin into the desired shape, oblong or round, you choose. The dough should be around 4 to 6 mm thick, but it's not a problem if it varies, they will all turn out delicious. Fry the naan in a well-heated pan over medium heat, about 40 seconds on the first side and 30 seconds on the other side, until golden brown. The cooking time can vary depending on the pan and the heat, so it might take a few tries to find the ideal time. Be careful not to overcook them, as they can burn quickly. While they are still warm, spread them with butter or a mixture of butter, garlic and parsley and serve with your favorite dish. I usually make them when I'm making dal. If you like the video, leave a like and subscribe for more delicious recipes. Bon appétit!